Welcome to the 9th episode of the Cooking-Dojo. Hey, as any ninja or samurai knows, you're only as good as your knives. So, let's go to it. I possess Wusthof Grand Prix 2 knives that I got from Amazon. This first knife is a carving knife. As you can see, it's very long because you want to cut meat in long strides to not disturb it, to make sure it maintains a good, to keep the moisture in. You don't want to damage the meat too much when you roast or carve any meats. Next knife I got here is the offset bread knife. You can see that it's for cutting bread, and then you can see it comes down so you can offset. Makes it easier to cut. Next one is a flexible boning knife. So this is for cutting poultry or fish. So we have here also a paring knife, a chef's knife, poultry shears. Apparently, chef told me that these things are also a bottle opener, but I haven't been able to get to use it correctly. Last thing here is we got a sharpening steel. It's kind of a misnomer because it doesn't really sharpen your knives. What it does is that each knife has a burr on it, which is like a thin metal strip that you can't see to the naked eye. And what happens is that when you cut over time, that burr bends to the left or right. So then it dulls your knife. So sharpening knives can only really be done by a professional. So what you want to do is when you hone a knife, it makes the burr straight and therefore cuts better. So most people will hold it like this, but then if you slip, you'll chop right here, and that part is really soft. That makes it very hard to heal. So what I was taught is that you put your thumb in the way, so then as you work the honing of the knife, if it slips, it cuts the outside of your thumb, and therefore it's easier to heal. So that's how you do it. You just sweep it around a 30-degree angle, back and forth to hone your blade. So the next question goes down is, how many knives do you need? Well, the bottom line is you only need a chef's knife and a paring knife. The reason being is that, I'll use the analogy, is that back in medieval times, nobles would fight, and then they send their peasants out to fight and everything too, and well, peasants would get killed because the nobles were rich and therefore they had better armor. So if this is like your broadsword or whatever, you can slash and stab. So what happens though is that the nobles wouldn't be hurt because they had plate mail armor or chain mail or what have you. So basically you'd fight. If you could knock out your opponent, you would just lift their helmet up and slit their throat with like a dagger. So the paring knife is really good for finesse, and the chef's knife is for general cutting. So if you had to go with knives, I would just go with these two. Since this is the Cooking-Dojo, here's the Asian equivalent of the paring knife and the Asian equivalent of the chef's knife called the Santoku knife. I don't know if I said that right, but it's the Japanese chef's knife. So the other thing that you'll notice in knives is that sometimes it's got dimples or holes on the edge, and that means it's a hollow edge. So when you cut, you have cutting speed. They'll cause air pockets, so then food won't attach to it. Well, let's demo with an onion. So the first rule of cutting is that you always want to produce a flat cutting, the object, you want it to be flat so it doesn't slip. The other thing is, the way you hold a knife is, what chef taught me is that you hold it like this and then both in the center to just hold the balance. So we're going to cut it one more time to make it flat. So onions, oftentimes for onions, what people do is that they cut, I'll say the root. You don't want to cut the root because that's where you want to, it's going to be the strands that keep it together. So let's use our little paring knife and we'll cut little cuts like this in a vertical manner. The other thing is you want to curl your fingers so you don't damage them. The other thing you do is you cut some of these things horizontally. So then we'll switch over to our bigger Santoku knife. As you can see, if I had cut it better, you can see that there's gonna be better dicing. So that's how you do it. Alright, that concludes the knife episode. Thanks for watching. Okay, here at Cooking-Dojo, we're gonna give you bonus footage, a cooking knife technique that they don't teach you in cooking school.